Hello, everyone. My name is Ned Dennis, and I'm a marathon swimmer and organizer from County Cork in Ireland. We've run a series of recorded interviews to try to capture some of the history of open water swimming locally. We experienced kind of an explosion from 2000 to 2020, and just kind of interesting to get down on the record kind of how and why that happened. I've got the folks from Fermoy, which is a city stroke town located 30 minutes north of Cork City. And I'll ask the three of you to introduce yourselves, please.
Will I go first?
Go on, Dave.
Okay. My name is Dave Mulcahy, and I've been swimming in Fermoy for since late 90s, I suppose, since I met Leo and Tommy. And we started swimming in the river about 98, 99, and it's kind of snowballed since then. So what was like a little seedling, now we have loads of people interested in open water swimming in Fermoy, so much so that we have gone on to win the club competition in the Lee Swim, which was for us a big deal. But yeah, it's been fantastic. And what else can we say about it? Since the last few years, since the weir has been causing trouble, the weir kind of retains the water and gives it a good depth. But in the last few years, the weir has disintegrated a bit, so the depth has reduced by about a metre or more. But it meant that we're compelled to swim in other locations and look for other locations. So now we swim down the Blackwater, and we swim in the reservoir, and we swim in another river called the Funcheon, and in the Bride as well, of course. So that, yeah, it's been fantastic. So yeah, let you go, Owen or Leo.
Yeah.
What? My name is Leo Bastley from Fermoy, County Cork, and I learned to swim in the Ireland, not too far from where you swim today, is a fair, and it was just a little bridge crossing over the Ireland, just where you go to Ballydrown. And my mother used to bring us out in the car, and there was a bit of a pool there, and that's where I learned to swim. That was in the 50s. Then we'll skip a lot of years. And I used to meet Tommy Baker swimming up, and I didn't really know him. I knew him because he was 10 years older than me. So we speak now and then, but then we got into a habit. We go every morning, every evening for several years. I don't know how long. And then Owen came along, of course, and upset the whole lot because he started. We didn't even know how to swim. So then he came to do the Lee Swim, and you encouraged us, and I encouraged Owen, and Owen, what was your friend's name? Brian. So the three of us went off and did the first swim. What year was that, Owen?
2006, I think.
That was my first Lee Swim. I did a few of them after that, and that was all I can think of at the moment. So I hand you over to Owen now.
My name is Owen O'Keefe. I am from Fermoy as well. I've been swimming in the Blackwater for as long as I can remember, really. I was introduced to it by my grandfather, Tommy Baker, when I was probably 6 or 7 or something, was I, when I started going first. And then probably a year or two later, I joined the local swimming club. There's a thriving swimming club here in Fermoy, and learned to really swim properly, and found that swimming was something that I really enjoyed, and that was what I wanted to do outside of school, and I wanted to be as good as that as I could be. Nobody else in the swimming club really did open water at that time, so I wasn't aware of what opportunities were out there, but I still really enjoyed it, and over time I think I kept pushing to swim longer and longer, didn't I? I just wanted to swim to the next tree or the next mark every time, and over the years just got more into it. And then I think I was kind of maturing at a very exciting time in open water in Ireland, but in Cork in particular. There was so much happening. The Lee Swim was starting up, and I was probably 13, I'd say. Yeah, when when you had that idea to do the Lee swim, that we would all do it, myself and Brian Dillon, who was in the swimming club in Fermoy with me as well. And yeah, became a twice daily thing, wasn't it? 7 o'clock every morning, 5:30 every evening. And we just kind of lived for that during the summer. And through the Lee swim and going down to Sandy Cove, met Ned and a whole lot of other people that opened our eyes to what was out there and the possibilities in terms of open water swimming. And I think it went from there. More people started to get involved. The triathlon club came along then in later years. And like Dave was saying, we always used to have that option if the river was flowing too fast, that we would go to the local reservoir and swim. And then in later years, we started swimming downriver as well. So we started looking at different swimming spots, and then even started swimming between them. And yeah, we have a great selection now, and there's so many people.
Swimming above the reservoir.
Yes, I had so the reservoir is it's in Knockinanig, about 5 kilometers from Fermoy, and yeah, during the year I was training for the channel. A lot of the time the river wasn't suitable to train, so I had to go up there, and it's a 450-meter lap. So many laps for a long swim. Good training for the channel, I think. And yeah, so my longest swim in the river, then I always had this idea that was at the back of my mind for years, to swim from Fermoy to the sea at Youghal, which I did in 2013. That's a 60k swim, but really it's a 40k, because you're with the current the whole way. But nobody done that before, and it was a brilliant experience for me and for a lot of people that had been swimming in the river for years, and we kind of never had that idea that, you know, we could take on a big swim of that magnitude in the river, when we had just been kind of dipping there all along and doing short swims. To be able to do a marathon swim was brilliant. Yeah.
So for Leo and Dave, bring us back to 1999. Yeah, as an example. There was the two of you. There was Tommy, who was Owen's granddad, maybe young Owen at that point. I don't know how old you were in 1999, not very old. How many other people were swimming in the river regularly? It was just you folks.
No, there was like the bit around the corner. Oh, what's his name?
Morgan Spillane.
What's his name?
Oh, Morgan Spillane was there.
The
man with the armbands was there. Dr. Charlie was there. Paddy Phelan, would he have been swimming that time as well?
I'd say he was not there.
Yeah.
And those swims, were those swims a dip? Were they 10 minutes? Were they half an hour? Were they a mile? What was the swim that you would do?
It was very soft, really. We sort of go. We go in at where the wall is up Bannan. We go down the steps there, and we'd swim across the river, up about 200 yards and back down. And that was the routine every morning. We would go. Oh, I don't know. Were you still at school? But that was
in those early days. I would do whatever you were doing. Some days we'd go for what we called a long swim, which was to get changed at the steps, and we'd walk about 500 meters, maybe, if that even. And there was an alder on the bank that had a rope tied to it, and we'd get a good swing off the rope halfway out into the river, and we'd swim down with the current from there. And that was a big swim that time. But then it was 99, 2000 that the master swimmers started arriving on an annual basis. And that served as great inspiration to push the boat out a bit. And that was down to Dave, really, I suppose, encouraging Cork Masters and whoever else was swimming at that time.
Yeah, we had this idea at the time. Bridget was reminding me that in 99, our firstborn was in a backpack, and we took a walk up the riverbank as far as Castle Hyde, trying to locate an access point And the people that had Castlehyde at that time weren't too pleased with us. So that didn't go ahead. But I think eventually around 99, we got a swim organized where we got in at the steps. I know people generally get in at the rowing club, which is 400 or 500 meters closer to the town. But we got in at the steps and we put a marker buoy up there by the swing. So I think it might have been 750 meters upriver or whatever. And you did an out and back swim. So I think we had a kind of an organized swim maybe in 99. And from then it kind of morphed. So we had a kind of an annual swim that was, you know, was it a race or was it a swim? I think generally it was an event and it was casual. And even though we did get some good swimmers, strong swimmers, I suppose it wasn't until Owen came along that it became kind of a more structured and competitive. Yes, I suppose so. But it was great. We had a good few of the Cork Masters swimmers used to show up. Steve Black was kind of a driving force. He was one of the guys that had started swimming in Sandy Cove. So we had a kind of a core group from Sandy Cove, and it was easy enough to tap into them and ask them to come down. So Rob the Bull Bohan and Imelda and Tyke Harrington and Vince Cassidy and even Pete, my brother, and a few more, as well as Leo and Tommy. So we'd have had, 10 or 15 or 20 maybe. And the first few years, it kind of took off slowly, I suppose. But there was a growing interest the whole time. So that I suppose the fact that Sandy Cove had started earlier meant that it was morphing into a big deal. So that we know how Sandy Cove has come on since then. It's become the mecca of open water swimming. So yeah, that was kind of
Martin Duggan Memorial.
Oh, yeah, go on. Off to you.
Let's break it into a couple of pieces. Owen and Dave in particular, I remember Cork Distance Week coming up and doing the swim from the boat club up to Castlehyde, which at the time was owned by the river dancer Michael Flatley. We'd swim up to the big mansion, yell out for a cup of tea, which never appeared, and swim back down again. It's about 7K, Owen, up and back, something like that. That became a swim that smaller groups would do every now and then. So that was kind of one swim. Dave, then you and Owen, or some combination of you, organized a kind of a mass swim. I remember the food in the boat club was just unbelievable. Dave's wife Bridget and others just put on a feed, and there'd be just a bigger group going up to the mansion, or not quite that far, and that went on for a few years. You then had the triathletes, and some tries were happening in the river. It's not something I know a whole lot about, but you guys can fill us in on the history of that.
Yeah. I suppose from my point of view, we were swimming with the Masters Club in Cork, and we had a kind of an open water section, if you like. And at some stage, we tried to organize a Masters group in Fermoy in the pool, which worked to some extent, but eventually it got overtaken by the Triathlon Club. And there were a couple of key differences. I think the Masters group, we kind of struggled for numbers. People, I think, in a kind of smaller area, we didn't have the numbers to kind of pad out a Masters club where people swam competitively. But when the Triathlon Club came along, they had bigger numbers and more money, and it was easy peasy. So the result is that we ended up with coach sessions 3 days a week in Fermoy, and great interest in open water swimming, so that now there's a great core group there in Fermoy who, have kind of subgroups, WhatsApp groups and whatever, and they have swimming every day of the year in one location or another, so that some of the hard cases like Owen and Leo, I suppose to some extent, will swim a lot of the time. Yeah, that's the Martin Duggan swim that Owen started, which started out of really. Go on, let you take over, Owen, there on Martin Duggan swim.
Yeah, I think that was around, it was probably 2007. There was a young lad around my own age that was playing with friends by the riverbank one summer's evening, and he got into difficulty, unfortunately, and he drowned. And with the support of his family, then the following year, we named our annual swim the Martin Duggan Memorial Swim. And that became very popular then for a few years. For a while, we had 2 distances, 3 distances, kind of 2K, 3K, no, 2K, 4K, 6K. Other years it was kind of open distance, and eventually we kind of settled on a 2-kilometer swim because that seemed to be the most popular. And with it becoming more formal, it became difficult to have people swimming multiple distances and organizing different times and so on. And that ran well then for a couple of years. I think we had good numbers. You know, we had upwards of 200 people in it at one stage, I think. And it was a great success, especially with the collaboration with the rowing club as well. They were very accommodating with giving us the clubhouse for that event, for changing rooms and reception and prizes and everything afterwards, and showers and the whole lot. Then I think I went off to college then. So I left that slide a bit. And since then, it has been, in terms of events, it has been more so the triathlons. In terms of racing, there was the sprint triathlon for the first couple of years. And was it just last year, Dave, that it became a full distance?
I think it was the Olympic distance last year, yeah. Or maybe the year before.
Yeah. And there was a number of aquathlons then as well, a kind of a local aquathlon series that was very popular. Yeah. And yeah, those events, they always went very well, and they were always well supported by different organizations in the town. Especially the Subaqua Club here in Fermoy is very active as well, and they always provide support for whether it's a swimming event or a triathlon event or anything that's happening on the river.
I remember about the Martin Duggan swim, still smile about it. Oh, and you were about 15 at the time. You got this bright idea. So we went to get the insurance and needed to put together a safety plan. And I had to call you and Dave up and go, look, we can't really have a 15-year-old guy who's like, you know, in charge of the whole event for insurance purposes. Dave, we need you to step in now. You know, I was happy for Owen to be involved, but I can't be listing a 12 or 15-year-old, whatever you were at the time. Owen, let's talk about some of your growth in distance swimming. I remember you and your young friend coming down to Sandy Cove in November or whatever it was one year. It's fairly cold water, maybe 10, 11. And we had a guy I swam with dreadlocks and a wetsuit. So I think he took you, Owen, and I took your friend.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, we'll let these guys swim out to the island in their togs. They'll be frozen at that point. We'll make sure they don't drown, and good enough. And we get out to corner one, and these 2 lads were determined to go around the island. And I thought there was going to be a fist fight break out if we didn't let them. So off they went around the island, not a care in the world. And it was really perhaps for Owen, your kind of moment of getting seriously involved. Your friend dropped away, and Brian, I forget his last name, and you just kept going and going and going. You eventually swam the English Channel as the youngest person in Ireland ever to do it. And then you became quite a celebrity. It bothered me greatly. Became quite the celebrity, and you were I said, if I get it right, the master of ceremonies at the St. Patrick's Day Parade. You were on the Tonight Show or Tonight or whatever, late night show. And then when the Queen came to Ireland, you were on the guest list. Did I get all that right?
You good, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. I think that the requirement to go to Sandy Cove when we entered the Lee Swim, that was a kind of a turning point, really, that, you know, you had to go to Sandy Cove and you had to be sort of checked over. And it was kind of a light bulb moment, really, to see how many people were swimming, and that they were swimming around the island and they were doing it regularly. And there was people doing even longer swims. And I was just fascinated by it all. And as I say, I felt that it was something that I was good at compared to any other sports. I didn't do well at all, but swimming, I just really enjoyed it. And the cold and all of that didn't really bother me very much. And even if it did, it's not like Grandad or Leo or anyone else was going to put up with us complaining. So we just got on with it. And it was, it was just making the connection with the group that was there at that time when it was really, really taking off. And then I would say probably the following year, then I had done 2 laps of Sandy Cove. And I decided, oh, someday now I'm going to do 3 laps. And there was a day coming up where the weather was fine and I felt good. And I think I texted you, Ned, to say, would there be anybody available to swim 3 laps with me? And I think you made some calls then behind my back about ringing my parents to see would I do Speckled Door swim. So I think 3 laps of Sandy Cove would have been about 4.3 kilometers, but the Speckled Door is 5 kilometers. The big difference being though that it's along the exposed coast with nowhere to get out from start to finish. And I didn't know that all that was happening really until I turned up and I was told you need to put on Vaseline and we're getting in the car and we're going over to a different start point. And we did that swim, that 5 kilometer swim in the open sea. You, me and Danny Collin, we were all kind of similar speed. No kayak or anything. We won't dwell on that. But 2 grown men and a 14-year-old in the middle of the sea with no support cover. But the kind of after that, there was definitely kind of, oh, that was a big swim.
So you left out 2 things, Owen. The echo was there, and you were in the paper and in photographs having completed it. You were a superstar, and we did have a safety plan. Danny was in his wetsuit, and Danny and I had each done the English Channel. And the safety plan was, if you get into trouble, we'll kill Danny and float on him. Was the plan. Dave was instrumental in getting you down to Sandy Cove a lot. And when you went down to Sandy Cove, you were surrounded in those years by probably 5, 6, 7 locals who had done the English Channel. So you had plenty of role models. And I think the famous trip you took to the English Channel together with Lisa Cummings and Sylvain Estidou from France, who was living in Cork. We're off to English Channel, whatever year that was, 2012 or something like that. I don't remember.
2009.
Yeah. 2009.
2009.
Yeah.
You had the 3 of you in those caravans at Varn Ridge. The weather was terrible for the first week. We had crew flying in and out and driving back and forth because people had to get on their holidays. Leo, you and your wife were absolutely no help. You just came over on holiday, would swan in every now and then and swan out again. You had all sorts of desperado relatives and friends, Owen, that would swan in and out. And then we ended up with Lisa Cummings getting in the water on a Saturday morning near the end of your possible window to do her over and back.
Yeah, on the same boat.
We were all at the shore to wish her good luck. 24 hours later, Sylvain headed off, and it was a smaller group wishing him well. And then she came in after 35 something hours at 2 o'clock on the Monday morning. You needed to leave by 6 to make your window. Dave was on board. I was on board. Jackie, your coach, and your uncle was on board. And you had just the most glorious swim across the channel. 10 hours, 19 minutes. Did I get that right? 10 hours, 19 minutes. You then became a superstar famous. You wouldn't speak to little people anymore for a few weeks. You and Lisa were the talk of the town. And from there, you just kept swimming and swimming and swimming.
Yes, absolutely. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a brilliant journey to be on. And definitely, you know, had it not been for Grandad and for everyone that kind of just brought me to the Blackwater when I was 6 or 7, you know, that might never have happened. Just so many different things came together. The fact that they brought me to the river, the fact that I was living in a place that had such a fantastic natural amenity, place that had a good swimming club, and the timing as well. Went down to Sandy Cove at that time, and it was brilliant. The kind of sense of the focus on the swimming was great because there was nobody my age doing it. I didn't get on very well with people my own age anyway. So being able to go down to Sandy Cove and there being a big group of people who I could talk to, and they didn't kind of treat me like I was a child. We were all just swimmers. Nobody cared what job you had, where you went to school, what age you were, anything. And it was just such an accepting environment. It completely changed my life anyway. I think I wouldn't be the same were it not for that.
We have Owen Mark II. His name is Mr. Foster. We'll give him Brian Foster. And Brian is on for the English Channel this year. At one point, as he got more and more serious, I said to he and his father, Steve, you really need to go talk to Owen. So off they traipsed to Fermoy, I think, and had to sit down with you and talk about, what does a 13, 14, 15-year-old need to do to get across the English Channel. Brian's had his success in Catalina this year. He signed on for both the English and the North this year. And you certainly provided a fantastic role model for him. Let's hope he gets across the channel in sometime longer than 10 hours and 19 minutes. 10, 20 be fine. I can't really deal with him if he's 10, 17. That'd be just heartbreaking.
Very good.
And the other connection which I was thinking about was kind of fascinating. Your swim down to Youghal down the river. By sheer coincidence, it took place on the same day that a group of us had organized to go to Waterford to have dinner with Colin Burnock, who had finished the English Channel. By sheer coincidence, and a group of them were timing your swim, and they actually diverted on the way to Waterford to see you finish. I could see the boat when I crossed the river somewhere over there in Youghal, and I knew you were still swimming. And Cullen was one of the people a few years ahead of you on the English Channel. It was interesting connection on that.
Yeah.
Just fascinating how all of that came together. Dave, talk to us a little bit more about the Lee swim and getting the Fermoy group organized to go out in mass that year and to come back with the cup.
Well, it was an easy sell because there's a club competition for best club, and there's quite a few clubs. Actually, Sandy Cove are exempt because they have such a huge membership. But other clubs like Mallow and Youghal Troy and Fermoy Troy and different clubs, it was a great kind of motivating thing to say, look, you got to do this for the greater good of the club or whatever, So we were able to sell it quite easily, and we already had a good core group of swimmers. So that in the last few years, we've had kind of over 50 competitors go up and take part. And even if they all get 1 point for coming 10th or whatever, you're still in with a shout. So that we're winning by numbers, I think. But no, it's been great over the years. And a bit of rivalry with Mallow, of course, is great. The Great White Shark motivates them up there in Mallow, so that helps. And but it's just such an easy sell. I suppose in the last few years, maybe it's global warming or something, but the river temperatures, it's been getting warmer, or seeming to get warmer. And, what might have been a challenge years ago, getting in 10 and 12 degrees, now can be 15 or 16 or even 18 degrees. So that, it's been great. I think, it goes back to 06 or 05 or something. We did that swim first. And we've managed to do it every year since, touch wood. Hopefully get in a few more. And we've got a group motivated again this year to take it on again. So all going well.
It's probably worth mentioning the reservoir has been one of the key areas in ice swimming the last few years. We've had a number of local swimmers get their ice mile and compete in the 1K races. And inevitably, they needed to do a qualifier. And as we looked around, the reservoir was one of the safer locations. As Owen described, it's kind of a 450-meter lap. You're never too far from shore. We were able to lay on kayaks, and then a couple of times we just went up and back on one of the shores. I remember, Carmel Collins showing up one year, for example, to help with the kayaking, and those prospective ice swimmers then ended up going everywhere from Northern Ireland to Siberia, and it was a big part of that community. You folks have primarily been tog swimmers, and have set an example for the locals in that. With the weir dissolving slowly but surely, tell us about Mallow. Fermoy. Fermoy, you've got now a flood barrier in place, so the city isn't flooding as often. What's going to happen with that weir? What's your projection? And you're talking now about swimming in different locations. How do you see that all happening in the coming years?
There was something on the avenue. The only was available.
There's planning permission now for the restoration.
Supposed to, but we're listening to that for a long time. Going back to Owen swimming the Blackwater, Tina G came to do a program of the Blackwater from back along, and when they came to Fermoy, he's swimming and he was interviewed with him, but it was all in Irish, so that was double Dutch to me. What did he?
Yeah, actually over the years there have been a few different documentaries made. There was a series maybe 10 years ago about rivers, and there was, I don't know how many different rivers. They did an episode on each river. Blackwater was one of them, and they stopped in Fermoy, and we did a piece on swimming for that. And there was another similar one a few years later about the importance of water for communities. And again, they came, I think I probably spoke more about ecology on that than swimming. And then recently, Darina Clancy from Youghal, so she's on Blackwater as well, she made a 4-part series. Was it 3 or 4 parts, specifically about the River Blackwater? So there was a good 3 hours of programming about it, and it really did the river justice. There was music composed for the documentary. It was a really beautiful piece, and they came to Fermoy, and we talked a lot about swimming and about ecology and the challenges facing the river in that program as well. And they've all those programs have been through Irish, but it's great that the river has been getting that attention because it really is an amazing place, and it deserves to be praised. In terms of the weir, you might have more information than me, Dave, but there is planning permission to restore it. But it takes time to get contractors for these things. So in the next 2 or 3 years, maybe we might see the water levels return where they were before.
Yeah. Well, it would be great if it got sorted, because we have had an event in the last few years where we got in Castlehyde and swam down to Fermoy, which is kind of a 3.5, 4K swim. And there's huge interest in that, a downriver swim that's a bit longer. And I suppose we had it a couple of times on a sunny day, and it was magnificent. So people still come up to us and say it was a great event. So if the weir is kind of fixed and the level comes back to what it was, we could run it again. But for the last couple of years, we've had to strike a big X through that because just not enough water. Unfortunately.
As well, historian from Mitchelstown, Bill Power, brought out a book about the River Blackwater. It's full of history and photographs of the river. Book is called The Irish Rhine, and in that, swimming is talked about as well, particularly in Fermoy. So definitely the profile of the river has been raised, and swimming has been a big part of that.
I'm glad,
Mm,
Owen, that the film crew wasn't around when you had that really stupid idea for you and I to do a swim from the middle of nowhere down to
From
down
Ballyhooly to Fermoy, yeah, that was
Ballyhooly to Fermoy, a 10K swim. And I remember at one
Yeah.
point
during a drought.
it was about this much water. My feet were already hurting from walking over pebbles, and there were 3 fly fishermen on the side of the water. And I just would not give them the satisfaction of ooh, ah, down the river. So we swam hundreds of meters in about that much water, clearly
Yeah.
disturbing any fish eggs that might have been on the bottom of the
It didn't
surface.
help that we did that swim on the day where the river was the lowest level it had been for about 10 years.
That's just above Castle Hyde. The rapids are, but the rapids were supposed to have gone that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
there
was
weren't any
very
rapids, Leo. There was a trickle of water, and Big Owen thinking it was the best idea he'd ever had. Guys, I'm gonna wrap it up right now. I want to thank you for putting Fermoy swimming on the map. I certainly had myself a number of great days out in the River Blackwater. I had a 10K swim with the bride, apparently, from somewhere that no one knew about to somewhere that no one could describe. I'm looking forward to doing some more swimming in the future with you folks. So thanks again, everybody.
Well, I show you what.
Yeah.
Can you see a
Oh,
photograph?
yeah.
Can you see that photograph?
Hold it up.
Hold it up more. Yeah, I can.
Well, Dave is in that. Leo is in it, and the most of them from Cork.
Do me a
That's
favor
right.
and
That's
get
right.
that on an iPhone, and I can attach it to somehow to this.
Dave Mulcahy, you were in that too, I think. You remember it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
That's,
seems
Yeah.
like only
it's up at the top of Barnham where we go in,
Yeah.
up at the small step.
I think we have a digital copy of it, and we have most people in it named. Grandad is in it.
Yeah.
Steve Black is there. Vince Cassidy, Tyke, Tyke is
Harrington,
in. Tyke Harrington, yeah. Yeah, well, I think
Imelda
we
Lynch.
probably name them all.
All right then.
Yeah.
I'll send that on.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, Ned.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Folks.
Bye.